HOA, Karen beat my disabled daughter with a metal bar, not knowing her father's a cop. I still hear the clang of that metal bar every time I close my eyes. One moment, my daughter Lily was laughing, trying to wheel herself toward the mailbox, and the next, the sharp sound of steel split the air. Then came her scream. High, brittle, and terrified, the sun was setting behind the row of manicured houses, casting long golden shadows across the sidewalk. I dropped the grocery bags and ran. My badge, my years of training all vanished into the background. Because in that instant, I wasn't a cop. I was just a father watching his disabled little girl crumple under a neighbor's rage. Karen stood there, breath heaving, her HOA badge clipped proudly to her chest, the metal bar still in her hand. She was blocking the sidewalk again. She hissed, "Rules are rules." My fists tightened. My pulse pounded like gunfire in my ears. But I couldn't move, not yet. Lily's chair lay tipped on its side. Her face was pale, her arm limp. I dropped to my knees beside her, my voice breaking. "Stay with me, baby, please. Before you hear what happened next, tell me, where are you watching from?" Because in my world, that day changed everything. The sirens came fast. The neighbors peeked from behind their curtains. Some filmed, others whispered. But none of them saw what I saw in Karen's eyes, that flicker of superiority, that sick satisfaction. She had no idea who I was. No idea that the man kneeling beside that bleeding child was a police officer. No idea that she'd just started a war she couldn't win. Before everything fell apart, life in Maple Grove felt like the American dream. White fences, trimmed lawns, kids on bikes, and the smell of fresh-cut grass every Saturday morning. My wife, Emily, loved our home. She said it was the first place where Lily could move around freely without judgment. Lily was 9, born with cerebral palsy. Her wheelchair wasn't a limitation, it was part of her rhythm, the way she chased the wind down the driveway, laughing like nothing could stop her. I'd come home from patrol, take off my badge, and push her around the cul-de-sac while she pointed at every blooming rose and said, "Daddy, look, sunshine." Karen moved in 2 months later. Tight curls, expensive sunglasses, and an attitude sharp enough to cut through glass. She became head of the HOA almost overnight. At first, we thought she was just organized. She'd send newsletters about lawn lengths, garbage bin colors, and community standards. Then came the looks. When Lily wheeled past, Karen's eyes followed her like she was breaking a law. One day she even said, "Your daughter's chair is always blocking the sidewalk. We have rules, you know." I brushed it off. "We'll keep it clear," I said, but something in her tone told me this wasn't about rules, it was about control. At night, when the sprinklers whispered outside, I'd think about how fragile peace can be. One misunderstanding, one hateful person, and your whole world cracks open. If you were in my place, what would you have done back then? Ignored her? Or stopped her before she crossed the line? The truth is, I didn't see the storm coming. But Karen was already sharpening her claws. It started small, so small I almost missed the signs. A note taped to our mailbox one morning: "Sidewalk access is public property. Please be considerate." The handwriting was neat, almost delicate, but the underline beneath "considerate" felt like a threat. A few days later, I caught Karen snapping photos of Lily's wheelchair ramp. When I stepped outside, she smiled that thin, smug smile. "Just documenting for the HOA. Records," she said. "For what exactly?" I asked. Her lips tightened. "For when someone gets tired of special treatment." That word, special, dripped venom. I wanted to tell her I was a cop, that I knew how to deal with bullies, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she looked at Lily, not with pity, but disgust, like she saw weakness instead of courage. 2 weeks later, our mailbox was hit with red spray paint. Rule breakers. The paint reeked of chemicals, still wet when I touched it. I scrubbed it clean before Lily saw, but I knew who did it. Karen's porch camera faced our house like a watchtower. Yet, somehow, the moment I asked to see footage, she shrugged. "Oh, dear." System was off that night. Lily began to notice. "Dad, "Why does Miss Karen hate us?" she asked one evening as we watched fireflies blink across the lawn. Her voice cracked, the kind of crack that stays with you. "She doesn't hate you, sweetheart." I lied. "She just doesn't understand people like us." But I did understand people like her. I'd seen their kind behind interrogation tables, people who thought power gave them purpose. One morning, we found Lily's wheelchair ramp splattered with oil. It was slick, deliberate. She almost slipped trying to roll down. My gut twisted. This wasn't random harassment anymore, it was escalation. I confronted Karen that evening. She stood on her porch, wine glass in hand, the sunset burning orange behind her. "You think I'm stupid?" I said quietly. She laughed. "No, officer, I think you're emotional. This is a neighborhood, not a daycare." My hand twitched toward my badge, but I stopped. I couldn't risk crossing a professional line. Not yet. Not without proof. That night, after Lily went to bed, I stared at the neighborhood camera feed I'd installed earlier. The faint hum of the monitor filled the room. I didn't realize it then, but I was watching the first sparks of a war that would soon explode. Because when people like Karen feel untouchable, they don't stop. They strike harder. And the next one wouldn't just be a note or a prank, it would be blood. By mid-June, our quiet cul-de-sac had turned into a battlefield. Karen wasn't just targeting us anymore, she was rallying others. A few of the neighbors started acting differently. Fewer smiles, more whispers. HOA bulletins began mentioning noncompliance, sidewalk obstruction, and unsanctioned structural additions. I knew those words were aimed squarely at us. Every Friday, she held HOA meetings in her backyard. I'd hear her voice through the open windows. Calm, persuasive, dripping with false concern. "We all love our community," she'd say, "but certain residents believe they're above the rules." Laughter followed, polite but poisonous. Lily still tried to live her little moments of joy. She'd wave at the mailman, feed the squirrels, or draw chalk hearts on the pavement. But every time I noticed Karen watching her, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Once, I even caught her snapping photos again. "Stop filming my daughter," I called out across the street. She smirked. "I'm documenting violations." "What violation? Being alive?" She didn't answer. She just turned and walked back inside. The click of her door shutting sounded like the start of a countdown. Soon after, we began receiving anonymous complaints. Noise disturbance, improper waste disposal, lawn too long. None of them true. Yet, every week, the HOA fines grew. When I confronted the board, they said, "Karen presented evidence." Of course she did. Emily tried to stay positive. "She'll get bored eventually," she said, brushing Lily's hair by the window. But I saw the stress building, dark circles under her eyes, forced smiles. I'd seen this kind of control tactic in domestic cases at work. Isolate, humiliate, dominate. Karen was using the entire HOA as her weapon. One afternoon, while washing my patrol car, I overheard her talking to a neighbor. "She plays the victim so well, doesn't she? That poor little girl in the chair." The neighbor murmured something. Then Karen said the line that made my blood run cold. Maybe if they didn't break rules, none of this would happen. That night, rain hammered against the windows. I sat by Lily's bedside as thunder rolled outside, her small hand gripping mine. "Daddy, can't you arrest bad people?" she whispered. My throat tightened. "Only when they break the law, sweetheart." She looked at me with those wide, trusting eyes. "Then what if they already did?" Her words cut deeper than any insult Karen could throw. Because deep down, I knew Lily was right. The law was built to protect, but sometimes it moved too slow. And Karen was about to prove just how far she'd go before anyone could stop her. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of quiet day that makes you believe peace still exists. The sky was clear, cicadas humming in the trees, and Lily was outside drawing with sidewalk chalk. She'd written "Be kind" in big pink letters near the curb. I was cleaning the garage when I heard it, Karen's voice. Sharp, clipped. "You can't draw there. That's public property." I stepped outside. Karen stood over Lily, hands on her hips, HOA clipboard in hand like a weapon. Her sunglasses reflected the trembling figure of my daughter, clutching a piece of chalk. "It's just chalk, Karen," I said, walking toward them. "It'll wash away." She turned to me, lips curling. "Rules are rules. Sidewalk art is not permitted." Before I could respond, she ground her heel into Lily's drawing, erasing the word kind under her shoe. Lily's lower lip trembled. "Why'd you do that?" she whispered. Karen's tone stayed icy. "Maybe now you'll learn boundaries." That was it. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "I've let you push this too far. You're harassing a disabled child." She snorted. "Disabled or not, your kid doesn't get special privileges." For a second, I imagined the headlines I'd seen too many times. "Officer loses temper in HOA dispute." So I did what my badge demanded. I walked away. I took Lily inside, locked the door, and sat at the kitchen table, fists clenched, jaw tight. Emily touched my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. I wanted to believe her. But the truth? It didn't feel right. It felt weak. That night, I found another note in our mailbox, this time scrawled in red marker. "Next time, it won't be chalk." I held that note under the kitchen light, my heart hammering. Karen wasn't just trying to humiliate us anymore. She wanted to scare us. I turned to Emily. "It's time I start recording everything. Do you think she'd really—" "Yes," I cut in. "And when she does, I'll be ready." The hum of the fridge filled the silence. Outside, porch lights flickered on across the street. Somewhere in the dark, I knew Karen was watching, waiting for us to slip up. She didn't know it yet. But I wasn't just a father anymore. I was a cop preparing a case. And soon, I'd have the evidence I needed. After that note, I knew I couldn't rely on the HOA, the neighbors, or even my badge alone. This wasn't a matter of authority, it was a matter of proof. I needed Karen to expose herself. So I set a trap. Quietly, carefully. The next morning before heading to work, I installed 2 hidden cameras. One above the porch light, angled toward the driveway, and another small pin cam near Lily's ramp. Both fed directly to my phone. If Karen so much as stepped on our lawn again, I'd have her. For a few days, everything was calm. Too calm. She still passed by with that smug wave, pretending everything was fine. But her silence felt rehearsed, like the calm before lightning strikes. Then, on Friday evening, the HOA announced a neighborhood cleanup day. Karen made sure the flyer was slipped under every door. The event, of course, was scheduled for Saturday morning, right when Lily loved to wheel out to draw. Emily frowned reading it. "She's setting something up." I nodded. "Let her." The next morning, the street filled with neighbors carrying trash bags and brooms. Karen strutted around in her bright yellow vest, barking orders. No clutter near the sidewalks. No ramps or obstructions. Lily rolled outside with a small cup of chalks. I stood nearby, pretending to check my phone while the camera app streamed every second. Karen spotted her immediately. Her smile vanished. "What did I just say?" she snapped, marching over. Lily froze. "I just wanted to. Enough." Karen grabbed the cup from her hands and flung it onto the lawn. Chalk dust scattered like colored smoke. That's when I stepped forward. "That's harassment, Karen. You're on camera." For the first time, I saw her falter. Her jaw tensed, eyes darting toward my porch light, then back at me. "You think you can intimidate me?" she spat. "This neighborhood listens to me." I smiled, cold, calm. "Then they'll all see what kind of leader you are." She stormed off, muttering under her breath. But I could see it, the crack in her composure. My plan worked. I had baited her ego. That night, I checked the footage. Her face twisted with fury, her hand snatching the chalks. It was all there. But what I didn't expect was what the camera caught after we went inside. Karen pacing near our ramp after dark. In her hand, something long metallic. I paused the video. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about revenge. And the next move would nearly destroy everything I loved. It was a Saturday morning, clear skies, soft sunlight filtering through the maples, birds chirping like the world had no idea what was about to happen. Lily was outside, humming along to her favorite song from Encanto, drawing a row of stars with her chalk. I was inside, fixing the squeaky hinge on the back door, the faint creak of metal masking what was unfolding just 20 feet away. Then came the sound that will haunt me forever. Clang! A metallic crack that split the morning air, followed by Lily's scream. I dropped the wrench and sprinted outside. My heart pounded so hard it drowned out everything else. The breeze, the traffic, even Emily's gasp from behind me. Karen stood over my daughter, face twisted with fury, her HOA vest half open, and a long metal bar in her hand. Lily's wheelchair was on its side, one was still spinning. There was a smear of red on her shoulder where the bar had struck. You people never listen. Karen shouted, voice trembling with rage. This ramp, this mess, it violates every community code. I froze for a split second, the world narrowing to her voice and Lily's sobs. Then instinct took over. I tackled the bar out of her hand, it clattered to the concrete, and pulled Lily into my arms. Her body was shaking, her small fingers gripping my sleeve. Dad, my arm, it hurts. I pressed my hand over the wound. You're okay, baby, you're okay. My voice was breaking, the cop in me gone. Only the father remained. Neighbors began to appear, porch doors opening, cell phones raised, eyes wide. Karen backed up, her hands trembling, trying to gather her words. She came at me first, she blurted out. She hit me with her chair. I turned to her, my voice low and lethal. Say that again. But she didn't. Her confidence wavered. The bar lay between us, smeared with red. I could feel the heat of my rage boiling under my skin. Emily screamed from behind me, calling 911, her voice breaking through the chaos. As I held Lily close, I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. Karen looked around, realizing she'd gone too far. It was an accident, she shrieked, stepping backward. You'll ruin this neighborhood. You'll ruin me. The sirens grew louder. Blue and red lights reflected off her pale face. When the police arrived, I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The camera on my porch had captured everything, the swing, the scream, the impact. One of the officers, someone I'd trained years ago, looked at me and shook his head in disbelief. Mike, he said softly, is that your daughter? I nodded, unable to speak. Lily whimpered against my chest. Karen started screaming as they handcuffed her. This is harassment. I'm the HOA president. You can't arrest me for enforcing the rules. But the officers didn't listen. I watched her get pushed into the back of the squad car, still shouting, still trying to spin her lie. The sound of the door slamming shut was the only justice that made sense in that moment. I looked down at Lily, pale, crying, frightened. I whispered, Daddy's here, sweetheart. I've got you. The world around us blurred. The neighbors whispering, the flashing lights, the echo of Karen's voice fading down the street. All that mattered was my daughter's trembling breath in my arms. That day, something in me broke. Not just as a father, but as a man who believed justice could always come through the system. Because even as Karen was taken away, I knew her kind never went down quietly. And I was right. The ride to the hospital felt endless. The world outside the window blurred into streaks of blue and red light. I sat in the ambulance beside Lily, clutching her hand, trying to keep my voice steady as the paramedic checked her vitals. Her shoulder was bruised and swollen, her eyes glassy from the pain. Emily sat across from me, tears running silently down her cheeks. Every few seconds she whispered, "You're okay, baby. You're okay." But her voice cracked every time. The paramedic looked at me. You her father? I nodded. She's lucky, he said. Another inch, and that hit could have done real damage. Lucky? The word hit me like a punch. There was nothing lucky about this. At the hospital, the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of monitors filled the room. I stood beside Lily's bed as a nurse cleaned the cut and wrapped her shoulder. She tried to smile through the pain. Am I in trouble, Daddy? No, sweetheart, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. When she fell asleep, I stepped out into the hallway, my badge heavy in my pocket. I wanted to use it, to make a call, to pull every string I could, but part of me feared it would look like vengeance instead of justice. The hospital lobby was packed with murmuring neighbors. Some came to check in, others just wanted gossip. I could hear them whispering, "Did you hear? Karen attacked that poor girl." I always knew she was unstable. Her husband's out of town, right? Figures. Their words were like static in my ears. None of them had spoken up when it mattered. Not one. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. The flashing lights were gone, but the silence that replaced them felt heavier. Emily came out and stood beside me, arms crossed tight. They said she'll need physical therapy, maybe for months. I stared at the dark street ahead. She'll walk again stronger, but I'm not letting this slide. Emily turned to me. "Mike, don't do something you'll regret." I looked at her, the rage in my chest steady and cold. Karen beat my daughter with a metal bar. If the system doesn't make her regret it, I will. The hum of the hospital lights buzzed above us. Somewhere inside, a child cried. But I didn't hear it clearly, because in that moment, all I could hear was the sound of steel hitting pavement. And I knew this wasn't over. By Monday morning, the case had already made its way through the precinct. Every officer in the department had seen the footage. Some called it open and shut. But I knew better. Nothing involving HOA politics and local influence was ever that simple. Karen's husband, Richard, was a real estate developer. One of those men who donates just enough to city campaigns to make phone calls disappear. By noon, I got the text from my captain, "You're off the case, Mike. Conflict of interest." Conflict of interest. My daughter nearly died, and now I had to sit on the sidelines. I walked into the station anyway, eyes straight ahead. The chatter died when I entered. My partner, Diaz, pulled me aside. "Mike, the footage is solid. There's no way she's walking away from this." "She'll try," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, but she doesn't know how deep we're going to dig." I gave him a flash drive with everything I'd collected, every note, every photo, every time-stamped video. Back it up somewhere she can't touch it. Diaz smirked. "Already done." Meanwhile, Karen had posted bail that morning. Reporters caught her outside the courthouse, wrapped in a red blazer, playing the victim. "It was an accident," she told the cameras. "The child startled me. This family has been harassing me for months." When I saw that footage, something in me snapped. That night, I sat beside Lily's hospital bed, the glow of the monitor reflecting off her bandaged shoulder. She was asleep, her breath soft and shallow. Emily sat on the other side, exhausted. I whispered, "They're twisting it, sweetheart. They're trying to make you the villain." My phone buzzed. It was Diaz again. "Mike, you need to see this." He sent a screenshot. Karen's HOA chat logs, leaked from a group text. Her messages were pure poison. "I'll teach that family a lesson. No one defies me on my street. If she's disabled, maybe she should stay inside." The final message was time-stamped 10 minutes before the attack. I stared at the screen until my hands trembled. This wasn't just malice, it was premeditated. I forwarded everything to the prosecutor myself. Chain of evidence be damned. If the system wanted a fight, I'd give it one. As I left the hospital that night, the air was still and heavy. Streetlights flickered above like watchful eyes. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. Karen had started this war thinking I was just a neighbor. She'd soon find out I was a cop with nothing left to lose. The courtroom smelled like old paper and polished wood, sterile, heavy, and silent. The kind of silence that presses on your ribs until breathing feels like guilt. I sat beside Emily, her hands clasped around mine, while Lily rested in a sling across her shoulder. Her arm was still healing, but she insisted on being here. She said she wanted to see the bad lady face the rules. Karen entered wearing a gray suit and fake composure. Her hair was pinned tight, her lips pursed in a line that pretended to be calm. But her eyes gave her away. Darting, defensive, full of the same arrogance that once made her swing that metal bar. When the bailiff called order, the tension was thick enough to taste. The prosecutor began with the footage, my footage. The screen flickered to life, showing our driveway, Lily's small figure Karen's shadow. And then that horrific moment. The sound of the clang echoed through the speakers, followed by Lily's cry. Gasps filled the courtroom. Karen's lawyer stood up immediately. "Your Honor, this video is taken from an illegal recording device." The judge cut him off. "Public property. No expectation of privacy. Overruled." I glanced at Karen then. Her face went pale, a flicker of fear slicing through her mask. The prosecutor continued. "The defendant's messages show clear intent," she wrote, and I quote, "I'll teach that family a lesson. This was not a moment of panic. It was a plan." He handed printed screenshots of her HOA group text to the judge. Each word, each cruel line, was like gasoline on a fire. Karen's defense tried to spin the narrative. They painted her as a stressed volunteer, overwhelmed by community responsibilities. They said she was provoked, that the family's constant hostility drove her to an impulsive act. I wanted to stand and shout, but I didn't have to. The truth didn't need my voice. It was written in my daughter's bruises. When Lily was called to speak, the room shifted. She rolled her wheelchair to the front, her sling visible, her little voice trembling but clear. "Ms. Karen said I broke rules," she said softly, "but I just wanted to draw hearts. She hit me because she didn't like me." No one moved. Even the judge leaned forward, silent. Karen lowered her head, pretending to wipe tears, but her jaw was tight. The prosecutor turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case isn't about rules. It's about cruelty hidden behind them." The defendant wasn't protecting a community. She was protecting her ego. When the closing arguments ended, the jury left to deliberate. The room felt like it held its breath. Emily squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "you did everything right." An hour later, the foreman returned. The words came slow, heavy. "We find the defendant, Karen Wilmore, guilty on all counts: aggravated assault, child endangerment, and harassment." Karen gasped, her composure finally cracking. She turned toward me, eyes wild. "You did this to me." I met her gaze steadily. "No, Karen, you did this to yourself." The gavel struck once. The sound was clean and final. As they led her away, Lily whispered, "Does that mean she goes to jail?" I nodded. "Yes, baby. For a long time." When we stepped outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter. The crowd had gathered, neighbors, reporters, strangers. Some clapped, some just stood in quiet respect. But I didn't smile. Justice didn't feel like victory. It felt like release, slow, heavy, bittersweet. That night, back home, I stood on the porch where it all began. The chalk stains were still faintly visible on the pavement. The stars shimmered above, calm and distant. For the first time in weeks, the neighborhood was silent. The morning after the verdict, the world felt still. No police cars, no reporters, no whispers. Just the soft hum of sprinklers and a cool breeze drifting through the neighborhood. For the first time in months, Maple Grove looked peaceful. But peace doesn't come easy. It's earned, one scar at a time. I brewed coffee and stood by the window, watching Lily trace her finger along the porch rail, humming to herself. She was healing slowly both inside and out. The bruise on her shoulder had faded to faint yellow, but she still flinched at sudden sounds. I'd give anything to erase that instinct from her memory. Then came the sound of tires on gravel. A dark sedan rolled up to the curb. I stepped outside, hand instinctively brushing against my badge clipped inside my shirt. The door opened, and out stepped Richard, Karen's husband. He looked nothing like the confident man I remembered from HOA meetings. His face was drawn, his suit wrinkled, eyes hollow. He walked up the driveway with a paper envelope in his hand. "I'm not here to fight," he said quietly. "I just came to apologize." Emily joined me at the door, cautious. "Apologize? After what she did, she's gone," he interrupted. The judge denied her appeal. Minimum 5 years. The HOA voted to remove her yesterday. He hesitated. "And I filed for divorce this morning." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a signed check, the entire HOA fund balance, and a note for Lily's therapy. She deserved better neighbors. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The man looked broken, ashamed. I should have stopped her, he said, voice cracking. She wasn't always like that. Power changed her. And I just watched it happen. I nodded slowly. The thing about people like Karen is they mistake control for purpose. By the time they realize the difference, it's too late. Richard lowered his head. I hope your little girl heals. She's tougher than any of us. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek. Do you believe him? I looked toward the street where he disappeared. Yeah, maybe for the first time he meant it. That evening, I sat on the porch with Lily. The sun was low, the sky painted in amber and gold. She picked up a piece of chalk and began to draw again, hesitant at first, then more confident. When she finished, she turned to me with a small grin. Look, Daddy, I wrote again. Across the pavement, in big pink letters, "Be kind." I smiled through the sting in my eyes. That's perfect, sweetheart. She looked thoughtful for a moment. Do you think Miss Karen will see it? I took a deep breath, the kind that feels like letting go. Maybe. And maybe one day she'll understand it. As the evening breeze carried the scent of fresh rain, I realized the war was finally over. Not won, just over. And sometimes that's all justice really is. A few months passed, and Maple Grove slowly forgot the headlines. The HOA got a new president, a kind woman named Mrs. Alvarez who brought cookies to every meeting and banned neighborhood gossip as the first rule of business. The Karen era, as people quietly called it, was over, but inside our home, the echoes still lingered. Every creak on the porch, every clang of metal in the garage pulled me back for a heartbeat. Trauma has a way of sneaking up on you, even in silence. Lily was getting stronger, though. Physical therapy became her new routine. She'd grin through the pain, pushing herself an inch further each day. Watch, Daddy, she'd say. I can move it now. And she could. Little by little, she reclaimed the body that fear had stolen from her. One Sunday, while we were at the park, a little boy pointed at her sling and asked what happened. Lily looked at him and said, with a smile too brave for her age, "A mean person hurt me once, but my dad caught her." The boy just nodded, wide-eyed. Then they both laughed and started racing down the path, her wheels spinning like freedom. That night, as I tucked her in, she whispered, "Are we safe now?" I brushed her hair gently. "Yeah, baby, we're safe." Emily stood at the doorway, arms crossed, smiling softly. "You know," she said, "you never told me what you wrote in your report." I smiled faintly. "The truth. Every word." "And what did the captain say?" "He said, justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about making sure it never happens again." Outside, the air was cool, the sky clear. The moon hung low, silver light spilling across our yard. The ramp Karen once hated was freshly painted white with tiny handprints from Lily at the base. A mark of survival. I walked to the edge of the porch and looked down at the faded chalk letters near the curb. Be kind. Still faint but visible, weathered by time and rain. That simple message had outlasted all of it, the rage, the rules, the hate. I took a deep breath and whispered, "You did good, kiddo." Somewhere inside, I finally felt the weight lift. The story that began with cruelty ended with courage. And those scars remain, both seen and unseen. They remind us that even in the cruelest corners of suburbia, justice can still bloom. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you forgive, or would you fight until peace had a name again? Either way, this is where our story ends. And where Lily's begins. Crescent moon.